Welcome to 5 and 5 from One Stop Co-op Shop, where we discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today we're looking at Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia from Stonemaier Games. Euphoria is a worker placement game for 1 to 6 players. You'll place your dice-based workforce on the board to gain resources and move tracks, all pursuing the goal of being the first to get 10 stars and to rule the dystopian society you're a part of. Disclaimer as always, in this case we were sent a review copy of the game and the expansion. Dystopian societies provide some of my favorite settings for books and movies, from Brave New World to Snowpiercer. But can Euphoria make this setting work in a game? Let's find out and get to the list. My first point for the solo mode of Euphoria is a mix, and that's the star victory points that you and the Automata are pursuing. On the negative side, the ways to get these stars feel a little bit limited, especially compared to another Stonemaier game with stars you gain Scythe. For the vast majority of them, you're building markets and placing them on territories, which feels a little bit repetitive sometimes and limited. But on the positive side, it's super straightforward, very easy to teach, and doesn't need any of the complicated scoring and point calculation you might find in these kinds of games. Also, as a quick unofficial note, this game should work totally well with the Automata and 2 players playing co-op. There's actually lots of ways to help each other out, and with the victory conditions being so simple, you could just say that both of you have to reach 10 stars before either Automata reaches 10. It's nice and clean, and I'd love to try it out. Speaking of the Automata, my number 4, also a mix, is about the way they function. On the positive side, the Automata turns are super quick to resolve, even though you're technically controlling 2 separate players for them. On the negative side, though, the lack of interaction opportunities sometimes makes it feel a little bit like multiplayer solitaire. They're doing their thing and you're doing yours. Also, their path to victory is determined by their card actions, and it can feel a little bit more random than I'd like whether or not they get those good cards that give them victory points. You might have a much harder or easier game just based on how the cards fall. Following up 2 mixes, we have a full-on con, but don't worry, things are going to get better soon. The con here is one of missed opportunity. As I mentioned, all the workers in the game are dice, and their values are supposed to matter, and in a few cases they do. When you place your dice on commodity spaces, the value of the die determines how many you get and other effects. But apart from that, the value of a die when you place it on the board has basically no meaning. It's not a terrible thing, but again, it feels like a missed opportunity, like lower dice and higher dice might have had other effects on other spaces, but it might have made things too complicated, so I do understand the choice, I think. Now, the other part that pushes this into a con are the knowledge checks. When you pull your workers back after using most of them, you have to roll them, and if the value is too high, you can lose one of them. This is great from a thematic perspective, and does give you some interesting choices to make, but it can also be very frustrating and lead to some negative play experiences. Alright, get thee gone negative points, let's get to the positives. My number 2 are the recruit cards and the factions. Players start with 2 recruits in the game, 1 active and 1 inactive. And first of all, their effects are super varied, and there are just so many of them. You have a huge deck of them in the base game, and then another huge deck in the expansion, and you use either one. It gives the game such great variability, and lots of replay as you kind of figure out how you want to use the different powers available to you. But even cooler than that, I love the faction system the workers are a part of. Most of the actions you take on the board will advance one of the 4 factions. Some of them are for the Automata, some of them are for you. And you can even splash a recruit into the Automata's faction and benefit as they advance. It's really fun and thematic, and it really makes you question every action you take and whether you want to potentially help the AI while you get the things that you need. And speaking of those tough choices, we're going to end with another pro, 2 in a row, and that's how you use the dice and your workers to perform actions in the game, kind of the core mechanics. I love the fact that dice you place can be bumped by another worker visiting the same space, which lets you re-roll it and get to go again without having to rest as often, which is great. And also, even though I didn't love the numbers in some ways, the fact that you can kind of set up the Automata's faction's commodity space so that they can't get their benefits because you leave a die there is really exciting. So yeah, in a way, I'm contradicting my number 3, the con, because the dice do really cool things sometimes, and I love the tough choices. So overall, would I recommend Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia with the expansion for solo play? I would say yes. This is a fun game for multiplayer and solo. I've enjoyed it both ways. I don't think it's Stonemaier Games' best. I think Scythe probably still holds that honor in my heart. It'll certainly appeal more to Euro gamers who like a little bit of randomness, because again, the Automata doesn't give you as much control over its actions as some players might like, and you also have the luck of the die rolls. But if players don't mind that, there's a lot of fun decisions here, a lot of nuance to discover, and I do think this game could work super well co-op. I have to try it sometime. Also, just as a small note unrelated to my 5 points, I do like the theme here. The names of the locations and things are hilarious. And also the components are beautiful. The game trays store everything gloriously. It's a really nice production overall. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.